Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the final edition of Team Selection for the 2024-2025 season, featuring a slightly new and improved mic placement. In today's edition, I have for you specific player insights, my own benching dilemmas, captaincy, and a slide on captaincy for a player that I do not own. And considering the season he's had, he's quite warranting of it for this final edition of Team Selection. If you have been enjoying the content around here all season, if you enjoy this video, then do drop a like on the video now. It'll take you 1 second just to click the button below. And equally, for the thousands of you who have not subscribed already, at least in preparation for next season, if not SYP, then do go and click that subscribe button down below right now. And that's all that really needs to be said. So let's hop into the last version of Team Selection for this season. To start with the goalkeepers, and to start with what is likely to be the only big surprise in this video for yourself, and that is who is on the bench, being David Raya, and who is starting, that is Alphonse Areola. Allow me to explain my logic. For me, I have Raya ceiling at 6, and not 7, but 6, because I really can't see Southampton forcing him into 3, at least realistically so, especially with the quality of the Arsenal defence. Sounds quite counterintuitive to the fact that I'm benching him, but I will explain. And so I think ceiling 6, and I think floor 2, right? It's very, very, very unlikely that they concede twice, I would say. So for me, floor 2. Areola, for me, actually has a floor of 3 because I'm quite bullish on West Ham's defence away at Ipswich. Wouldn't be starting him in the first place. But I do think he'll probably have to make some saves. He usually does. And for me, I'm going to set his floor at 3. Now, some of you would set it at 2. Some of you would maybe even set it at 1. But for me, I'm going to go 3 just with the way that I interpret this game going. The ceiling, however, if someone told me he made 6 saves and kept a clean sheet, I wouldn't be so surprised. The regular goal scorer, Jared Bowen, isn't so prolific on the bonus system either. So I do think Alphonse Areola can actually creep up to those 2 and 3 bonus points as he showcased away at Old Trafford. Let's say he gets 6 saves, which I actually think is like the height of his ceiling, right? Like very realistic ceiling. That's all of a sudden a 10 to 11 point return, whereas Rise is only 6. That's nearly double, or at least I'm getting 66% of it. And where the floor in comparison to Rise ceiling is not so different, only about a 3-point swing, in my opinion, I'm okay to take this on for that extra little bit of upside. Now, are Arsenal's defensive prospects better than West Ham's? Probably so, by a little bit, I would say. But for me personally, with the certain dynamic that I have between these two goalkeepers, I'm inclined to play Areola for the available upside. Now, of course, whilst Areola's ceiling may be higher, and even floor may be higher for this game, the probabilities associated to them are so different to that of Raya's. For example, Raya's ceiling, let's say he has a probability of like X, Areola's is like X minus 50, right, as an example. But I don't think it's so bad whereby I absolutely have to play David Raya. I do think I'm afforded the luxury of going after Areola's ceiling just because it is Ipswich's away and it's not something like, I don't know, Spurs away, which I think it would be much harder, even though the fixture's not interpreted to be too tough. So that is my logic here. I would understand if anyone was to play Raya, like I really would. I was probably going to play him early in the week. I have slightly changed my view there. And yeah, that's probably what I will be doing. Defense is as you would expect, for the most part. At least you have Jakub Kiwior starting, one of the best defenders in the game this week. The best fixture, as I expressed, with Raya. But he's also got the ceiling, which I don't think Raya has in this game, given his threat from set pieces. He absolutely plays for me. Ezri Konsa, Villa have been so good defensively as of late and for a while now. Box threat, gone on about it all season. Love owning the guy for that. And he's got a fixture which is honestly one of the better ones you can have in the league. I think it is a top 5 fixture to have in the league. United looks so flat against Spurs. And I don't necessarily expect Villa to take an overly aggressive defensive approach. I think when they block, they'll block fairly deep. They'll be quite compact and hard to break down. And I think we've seen United's struggles against that. Even if Garnacho's to play, yeah, he'll cause them some problems, I assume, at times. But I think overall, they'll be able to manage it fairly well. And probability would just dictate that I pretty much have to play him. So, Ezri Konsa starts. The last spot's interesting. There was a potential thought of making a defender transfer, but especially if Guardiola's to play left back, too high a ceiling. And given it's an important game, and City have, for the most part, been defending fairly well, or at least been getting fairly lucky with the defense, to be honest, either or is good. I'm more than happy to play Guardiola. Neco finds himself on the bench. I think we're going to win, so I expect him to concede. And with Munoz, I really wouldn't be surprised if he scores or gets an attack in return. I can see that with the way he's going to interact with that Liverpool system, but it's just the fact that I really cannot see him keeping a clean sheet, whereas I can for Ezri Konsa, for Jakub Kiwior, and even to for Hosko Gvardiol to an extent. So this almost picks itself, mainly just the bench order I had to decide, but I've gone with Neko just a pip up on Munoz due to the clean sheet probabilities, at least in terms of how I interpret them. Whilst we're moving on to the midfield here, it will very much be treated as half of the whole pot because I very much classify the forwards and midfielders to be almost one just big category for me this week, given the fact that if I'm to make a transfer in each of the departments, the opportunity cost would lie in the other, and that too, only the other, and wouldn't be affecting anything else. There are no more game weeks to use our transfers for this season. So, we'll discuss it as a whole. You will see that Cole Palmer starts, and he is the person who I have been the most reluctant to start in this team. I've really tried to find a way to justify the transfer in for Morgan Rogers, who I really like for this game week, even potentially Salah for a hit, but I just can't do it. Due to the quality of player and the routes to points, I just can't, or I guess usual routes to points, unless he's to be put in the position where he's only allowed to play central but tends to the left-hand side and Lavia isn't played, then it becomes even harder and there's less routes to points. But given the fact that I think we're going to win, the quality of the player, the fact that I think Romeo Lavia is going to play, he's going to play on the right-hand side as such in a box midfield, I think there's enough there whereby it's hard for me to justify selling him for a hit, and I can't move him down to Rogers just because he probably has a higher ceiling than Rogers for that. And, of course, the opportunity cost of not making a forward transfer then as well. And if Isak isn't to play, that means Saar comes into the side. And that's not so bad, but I'm not sure his expected minutes are as high as they usually would be if this was like a super competitive game. And, of course, it is a trip away to Anfield. So I don't love it because I think Forrest could make his life quite difficult. More so, I think Enzo Maresca could make his life quite difficult if positionally he isn't given something that's optimal. But just in my personal circumstance, it's very difficult for me to justify taking him out, or at least difficult, very difficult. The rest kind of just picks itself, right? I mean, like, Saar's got a trip away at Anfield, probably the lowest expected minutes of any of the guys. In Buemo's a lock, Bowen's a lock, Saka's a lock. There's not too much to discuss there. It was very much the fact that I was treating this as a whole, Cole Palmer as a potential transfer out, but difficult to justify the opportunity cost of that transfer. And now we can move on to the forwards and see what transfer I very likely will be making. Now, what you will see here is that Evanilson, similar to what I did in Game Week 37, is just hanging out by the side because he is very, very, very likely to be the transfer coming in for this game week. Let us just assume for 1 second before we go back to what will be the most likely transfer that Isak is actually in the squad, he's fit, he starts, we get a leak. Then what do I do? Because then I have the luxury afforded to myself to even bench Cole Palmer and go Saar to Rogers. I have the ability to bring him in for maybe Marmoush and then also take a hit to bench Cole Palmer. But I don't think I'll do that because, as I expressed, I'm not really interested in taking that hit. And even if Isak is to start, I still think I like Evanilson so much. Evanilson. I've been saying his name wrong all season, right? No one pulled me up on it. But I like Evanilson so much, and I've been spelling it wrong, but I like him so much that I think I would just take Marmoush out. Now, do I love taking Marmoush out? No, but there's no way Ollie Watkins leaves the side. If Isak starts, and he probably is, he's going to get like 75 plus, right? He kind of always does when he does start. And I just take up Marmoush and I get Evanilson in. And then the thing is, on paper, the team would be very strong. It's just the fact that I personally think Salah will do well, not too well, which we'll come on to. And the fact that I also think a really high EO threat in Morgan Rogers is also going to do quite well against the United side that probably hit rock bottom at the moment. No, they definitely have hit rock bottom, at least since Fergie joined the club all those years ago. And that is probably it for this team, aside from captaincy. It is very, very, very likely, because I think that Isak will be out, that Evanilson comes in for Alexander Isak. And then the team on screen is how it will roll. And then we'll see what happens. Again, don't love the Cole Palmer inclusion, but I guess I got to back my boy one last time. This was the slide that I discussed in the introduction. And whilst this could have been left for SYP, I just felt it necessary to include now. I think Salah will do well. I like him for this game. I just don't think he's going to do that well, right? I can see him scoring, maybe get 1 bonus point. I can see him getting an assist, or maybe even 2 assists and 1 bonus point. Like the 8, 7, 8, 9 type of range, right? I just don't think he's going to haul in this game, personally speaking, when you consider all the variables at play. Now, I know a lot of people are very bullish on him. I'm surprised at that, considering their line of thinking. I think it's more so their line is that Salah's going after the records, he's at home, last day, and so on. But I think the fact that Liverpool aren't playing properly, and they're not playing properly, look at the game against Brighton, the fact that they're on holiday every other day, and the fact that he's not in the same type of form, / it's not going the same way for him, as it was earlier in the season, it doesn't point to me that this is anywhere close to a guaranteed haul. And that is using that line of thinking. Now, if I was to use my own, one thing I would say that's really in Salah's favour is I look at the performances of Crystal Palace away at the Etihad and away at Newcastle in double game week 32. And I see how much they struggle with that high press. I remember City after about 30 minutes when they just clicked into gear, pressing them really high and causing Palace so many problems. The amount of times they panic, their repeated out was as opposed to putting the ball into the pivot and trusting them, was these clip balls into the channel. They were largely inaccurate. The City centre-backs would get the balls, or full-backs, recycle, and then go again and again and again, and pin them in their block, right? And they're a deep one at that. And Newcastle did a similar type of thing, and they really struggled to play out of this type of press. Now, there's no Mark Gahey, and there's no Adam Morton. Your two best on-the-ball players to cope with this type of press. Okay, big issue. And the one saving grace for them is that Liverpool's 4-2-4/4-3-3 hybrid is slightly different in the sense that that first line of the press, and it's one of the criticisms that Slots face this season, can be slightly lethargic, and it's coached in that way, right? As opposed to the players being lazy. God's sake, we have Dominic Szoboszlai. It's not exactly a very lazy guy, but it's just coached to be more passive, let's say, as opposed to other high presses, right? And I do think that maybe gives Palace a bit of an out that just allows them to save grace from one of their weaknesses in their side, and then maybe not concede too many transitions or high turnovers. Salah maybe doesn't profit as much as he could from that. And then in general, in terms of the open play, just because I think this game will be very much like a party, like to an extent, and the fact that it's not taken overly seriously, I think it's difficult to say like, oh, Liverpool employ this, this, and this. It's like Salah's at 100%, every player's at 100%, and therefore the matchups go as you would expect. But rather, I think you're playing a little bit more of a lottery. And with Palace's form as well, I'm just not so confident they absolutely put them to the sword. If this was like a must-win game for Liverpool, let's say titles on the line, and Palace had just won the FA Cup, then yeah, I'd be far more inclined to take a hit and captain Salah. But with all the other factors I discussed at the start, I think whilst they'll do well, whilst the matchup's kind of there for Salah, the fact that he's not trying as hard and it's not really going his way doesn't bode particularly well for me to go and captain him over Jarrod Bowen, nor for his usual ceiling. So, like I said, I think he'll do well. I just don't think he's going to do that well. Finally, to conclude the last section of the team selection this season, my own captain, and that will be Jarrod Bowen. And it seems quite fitting considering he's arguably been my player of the season. Recorded 31 in 6 for the first time I bought him, then had a dagger away at the Emirates, and then has obviously done so well since I brought him in. Maybe not my player of the season, but at least very, very, very close. And he'll get the armband for all the reasons discussed in EYN. I think that his ceiling's really healthy for this game, especially in comparison to maybe what it usually is. Or has been this particular season, and I'm expecting big things with a very good floor attached. Saka gets the vice captaincy. Like I said, these are the two mids to bring in for me. Good fixture. I'm confident enough in his expected minutes, at least 70, and I think he can do damage away at Southampton. For him, especially with the amount of moments Arsenal will have, he only really needs 2 right to go and record that whole. That's about it. Yeah, that is about it. So we'll head into the outro now. I feel like there's one more thing I had to say, like one more bit of analysis. There's not coming to mind. Oh, it was a bit of analysis, but more so a request for you guys. If you have anything that you would like covered in SYP that wasn't covered in EYN, or you would like covered again, and so on, just let me know. For example, I know that I forgot to talk about Diaz and Gakpo and a couple of other things. So if that's the case, drop it in the comments, let me know, and I will more than happily. And that is all she wrote for this video, ladies and gentlemen. That is all she wrote for the team selections this season. I wish you a very good day ahead, because I will see you either today or tomorrow, depending when you're watching this, for SYP. And then I'll probably say a proper goodbye then, even though I'm going to record one more video after this season finishes. So thank you once again for all your support. That is my team selection, and I shall see you very soon. Goodbye.